start with the land acknowledgement. We sit on the traditional territories of many great Indigenous peoples, and I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that the land that I am sitting on is part of the traditional territory of the Chippewa, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi nations. And because of the agreements laid out by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum, this is now considered the home of the Delaware Nation. These First Nations, known as the Anishinaabeg and the Lunapui, agreed to mutual sharing of the obligations, responsibilities, and privilege to be stewards of the land and the water. Today, these responsibilities, obligations, and privileges extend to all people. So, okay, I have a quote. Peace of mind arrives at the moment you come to peace with the contents of your mind. Let that land. I'll just say it again. Peace of mind arrives the moment you come to peace with the contents of your mind. And that very much is about allowing and accepting even the most difficult thoughts and feelings. And later on, we'll practice that. But for now, I have a beautiful poem by one of my favorite poets, Danna Faulds, and it's called Allow. There is no controlling life. Try corralling a lightning bolt, containing a tornado, damming a stream, and it will create a new channel. Resist, and the tide will sweep you off your feet. Allow, and grace will carry you to higher ground. The only safety lies in letting it all in. The wild and the weak, fear, fantasies, failures, and success. When the loss rips off the doors of your heart or sadness veils your vision with despair, practice becomes simply bearing the truth. In the choice to let go of your known way of being, the whole world is revealed in your new eyes. Just have some folks to admit, sorry. The whole world is revealed to your new eyes when you allow. And so that's the significance of that poem. And I've got two other ones. One is going to be in particular about what we're going to talk a little bit. Maybe I should talk about that for now. I'll do it this way. Sorry. So this one is by another favorite poet of mine, Mary Oliver, called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. And the message there is that we're all in this together, as alone as we may feel, or as deep in our suffering as we may feel. This is not unique. It's shared by all of us. Okay, so the next poem is called The Land of Not Knowing, and that's because the little talk that I want to give tonight is all about how just difficult it is these days because of so much uncertainty, and how I think we try to ignore that and carry on, which is a good thing to do, but we also need to validate what it is that's so difficult right now. So I'll get to that. In the meantime, this poem is called The Land of Not Knowing by Amy Ludwig Vanderwater. This is the land of not knowing, where many things are new, We're not exactly sure of what to say or what to do. Our world seemed normal yesterday, maybe 3 years ago. Today, it all feels strange. We cannot know exactly how our lives will change. There is so much we can't control. We never really could. But we can choose to help. We can use our gifts for good. When one girl saw that hugs had stopped, she drew small hugs to offer cheer. A symphony played songs for free, so folks heard beauty through their fear. Each of us has power we can use in little ways. We each can choose a gift to share, sharing lights in the darkest days. Not knowing can feel scary. We have not been here before, but the moon is still so splendid. Come look with me, I'll hold the door. So I came across this very powerful article, Why We're Feeling Tripped Up by Uncertainty. And even though, and I hesitate to say this, even though things look to be sort of settling and looking up, there are still people dying, there are still people getting sick, but not to the extent that they were before. But let's face it, there is just no real comfort sometimes, because it can change, or we fear that it can change, and it certainly can. Not just in terms of the pandemic, but just in things that happen in our everyday lives. The funny thing about uncertainty is that when we're watching a movie or reading a book, I know I've said this, that sometimes when something is predictable, I can get a little annoyed or bored because I sort of want to be surprised. Only a little, though. I don't like it too much. But sometimes people really do like to be afraid and sit on the edge of their seat and what's going to happen next feeling. It can be kind of thrilling and interesting in movies, books, and baseball playoffs, or any sport playoffs, I suppose. But in real life, especially when it comes to us, it's not always so fun. And we can feel very uncomfortable, not knowing what to expect. And it really, really can be extremely unsettling. Um, that being said, we really do crave a sense of predictability and controllability. It helps us to feel calmer and less anxious. This makes sense. And tonight's practice that we'll get into later on is all about how to accept the unknown, the unpredictable, and how we can fight it and be swept away and bring suffering to ourselves, or we can really, really validate and acknowledge. And the practice that we'll do is a meditation that some of you who've been with me for a while have done many, many times, called RAIN. And I sent that to you in the email. So we'll do a little bit of that later. But first, I just want to talk a little bit more about the whole thing. This whole COVID-19 and the uncertainty that we have lived through and continue to live through. I think it's been going on so long now that we are sort of a little bit, I don't know, immune, or we're just kind of becoming numb to it, I suppose. Not immune, but numb to it. And that is human nature. When something is really, really difficult, and it's unrelenting, that's what happens. We almost disassociate a little bit, and we just become a little numb to it. And that's fine. It's a way of coping, but it's also worth acknowledging sometimes, just taking a look at it like, okay, this is really hard, and just being with that for a little bit. Why? Because it's true and it's happening. And when we try to ignore something for so long, it can come back louder sometimes, and kind of tripping us up in more ways. So there is a practice of recognizing that that things that we acknowledge, that we accept, there's just much less suffering. And to illustrate this, there was an interesting study by some researchers at the University College of London, England, who found that subjects who had, and this was a test thing, 50% of the people knew that they were going to experience some mild electric shock. So in other words, if I read this correctly, they were playing a game, and that in the course of playing this game, they knew, okay, I'm going to get a shock at some point. I don't know when, but I know I'm going to get a shock. And then there was another group of people who were also playing the game, and they knew with 100% certainty that they were going to get a shock. And what they found is that the people who had more uncertainty, who weren't exactly sure, I could be one of those people who get a shock, I might not be. So that group of 50 who were very uncertain, they suffered more than the people who knew that they were going to get a shock. Do you follow? So in other words, knowing what's coming, we suffer less than not knowing, if we will, if we won't. That's more difficult. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it does for me. Like, I think I can get through a lot of things if I know what's coming. And it's the things that sort of blindside you that, oh, that take us more off guard and can kind of shock us more. But then another study found that whether workers knew they were going to be laid off, was that more harmful to them than not knowing? And they indicated that the uncertainty was, wait a second, another study found the uncertainty about whether workers were going to be laid off was more, that the uncertainty was more harmful than actually knowing that at the end of the month, my job is going to be gone. So sit with that for a little bit. So eventually over time, as I mentioned, we can sort of get immune to it or numb to it, but it's still difficult. And the more that we try to deny it, and sometimes even judging ourselves, like, why am I still feeling this way? I can't tell you the number of times that I'm talking with people and they sort of say stuff like that, like, I don't know, I'm just feeling a bit down. I've never really felt like this before. And they kind of, indicate, they're always sort of a little bit surprised when I remind them that we're still living in very uncertain times. And they're, oh yeah, I guess so. And a lot of times they sort of minimize that. And I'm here to tell you, no, it's still really difficult, all this uncertainty. And it isn't just with regard to the pandemic. We've got a lot of political upheaval. That's something that, unfortunately, this pandemic has kind of highlighted, especially in our country. That political upheaval was actually happening in other countries before the pandemic. We have mass violence. We have everyday catastrophes and tragedies like the war in the Ukraine and the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. Like, these things make it really difficult. And yet sometimes I get the feeling that we're telling ourselves we should be able to cope with this better. And there are no shoulds. You know how I feel about that word. And so it's really about acknowledging, how difficult this is. And just with a little bit of validation and recognition, we can kind of bring some peace and a little less suffering to ourselves. And I know that seems kind of wacky, but it's really, really true that when we acknowledge the difficulty of things, that it lessens ever so slightly. It doesn't take away massive amounts of that pain or that fear, but it helps. And so that's what the meditation rain is all about. And we're going to do that. Maybe we'll do that right now. But I want you to know that we're going to round off with a relaxing body scan, and then, if time allows, for our loving kindness meditation. So what exactly do I mean by a rain meditation? And this really, really is about bringing so much self-compassion. And this is never easy. But I will say, if you practice it regularly and you have awareness of the need to talk kinder, to validate yourself and what you're feeling, to sort of just, really, really speak to yourself the way that you would to a friend who you were trying to comfort. This concept is not easy, but it's so powerful and it can really, really help. So the acronym RAIN, the meditation the R stands for recognize, to recognize what is going on in this moment. And we're going to get right into this in a minute, but I do want to just sort of highlight these things. The next is the A, which stands for allow the experience to be there just as it is. as difficult as it is. And so often when something is uncomfortable, we try to distract ourselves. We try to run away from it, push it away, think of something else. Don't go there, girlfriend. How many times do people say things like that to themselves? But the opposite is really true. The more we sort of try to resist and push it away, the bigger it becomes, the louder it becomes. So we'll touch into this in a minute. The I stands for investigate or inquire. Investigate can sometimes sound a little harsh to me, so I choose the word inquire, which is just a little gentler. It just means we're going to ask some questions. We're going to think about some things. We're going to ask those questions to ourselves, and we're going to inquire with ourselves with special interest and care. And then the N stands for nourish with self-compassion, when we actually can kind of go through those steps and stages and then end with, wow, this is really, really hard. How hard this is, touching into it, acknowledging that in some very caring ways, deep caring ways. But there is another interpretation of the N that I've also heard that I feel like I need to sort of share with you. And that is that sometimes that N can stand for non-identifying, which means that sometimes when things are happening to us against our will or just in the world, and we really can take that in. Maybe someone said something to us, there was some injustice or unfairness, and we will take it personally. We will think that we are that thing, that we are all of this pain and sadness, that we are our grief, and we identify with that. And so that N sometimes can mean non-identifying, recognizing that, okay, this is happening to me right now, but this is not who I am. I am more than my grief. I am more than these things that people have said or done, or I am more than the pain that I'm feeling in this moment. So I'll sort of toggle a little bit back and forth when we get into this meditation between those two ideas about non-identifying and then bringing that nourishment. So I hope that that makes sense to you. So let's begin this, and I'm going to invite you to recall something that was particularly difficult. And, you know, there is a little bit of a guideline here. And it's really quite up to you. And depending on what stage you're at with grief, sometimes it's just inevitable. We're going to think of something that's profoundly sad, something that happened to us. But sometimes, you know, if you're practicing this meditation, it might be worth just recognizing or acknowledging something that was really hard. Maybe something someone said to you once that kind of hurt you or rubbed you the wrong way, or even an experience that happened to you fairly recently that didn't seem very fair. Or for me, I'm going to just share with you what's on I have grief about this, but I also have some anger, and it made my body very tense. I noticed the other day that the city was cutting down a very, very large tree that was probably at least 150 years old. And it hurt me to the core that this beautiful tree, you all know how I feel about trees, but it just angered me. I thought, and I tried to console myself in the moment, thinking, okay, maybe this tree was diseased. Maybe there's something that I don't know about this tree. And I'm gonna, in order to bring some comfort to myself, I'm probably going to investigate to find out exactly why this beautiful tree needed to be cut down. Because when I drove by it later in the day, I could see the tree trunk, and it looked very, very healthy to me. Sometimes when they remove large trees, you can see there's a lot of rotten wood in the center, and I understand that. But this looked like a perfectly healthy tree to me. So I got very angry, very upset, and you know, had to share that with a few of my coworkers, and now I'm sharing it with you. So I'm going to use that painful moment for me to practice a rain meditation. So as I'm going through this with you, I want you to kind of be plugging in yourself into this equation, this meditation yourself. And I will demonstrate that by what I might be saying and thinking to myself in that moment. So hoping, and I'll try to make sure that I leave enough room for you guys to be able to think your own thoughts about your own issue or difficulty. Okay, so beginning this meditation first by acknowledging, you know, the difficult situation. I'm going to pause here to allow you to bring into your mind something that was painful, difficult. And so just taking a moment right now. And again, even the thoughts of doing this, we might notice that there's a tensing in our body because we're sort of like, oh, we're becoming on guard with this. So I'm going to invite you to take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth with sound. And allowing yourself to soften to whatever extent is possible as you recognize this difficult thing that either happened or that you observed. And for me, it's seeing the images of this tree being felled, but for you, it's going to be something completely different. So take your time and see this and recognize what is happening for you as you touch into this. What are the thoughts? What are the behaviors that are coming from all this? For me, I was sad. I was angry. My body got very tense. I kind of got really hot. And what happened to you and what happens to you now as you recall this? And also to recognize this is painful. This is uncomfortable. This is a moment of suffering. There may be feelings of fear or shame or anxiety or real sadness, depression. And if we can say it out loud to ourselves, whisper it to ourselves, this is a moment of suffering. This is a moment of frustration. This is a moment of sadness, whatever it is. Just saying it either out loud to yourself or inside. Yeah. Okay. And the next part is to allow this experience. The A in RAID stands for allow, to be just as it is, as hard as that is. We don't like to sit with this for very long, especially it's human nature to want to escape painful, sad, heavy things. But allowing means just letting the thoughts and the emotions and the feelings and sensations that we're having to just be there without trying to fix it or tell ourselves a story, just allowing it to be. Please especially notice if there's any self-judgment, meaning, are you telling yourself that, oh, this is silly, I shouldn't be feeling this way? And if I'm honest, there was a little bit of that for me. I thought, why am I getting so upset about these things? This is a tree, and and then I caught that and I thought, no, this hurts right now. I'm grieving the loss of this 150-year-old tree. And then that softened and okay, it's here right now. So I want to give you some time now to really be with what's coming up, allowing it to come, to just let it be by maybe silently offering an encouraging word like, this is hard. This is so hard. It is sad. You're not trying to take it away. You're acknowledging, you're allowing, you're letting it be. Yes, it's okay. It's here right now. And in that yes, and in that it's here right now, there is that acceptance of what is when we allow. Acceptance of what is reduces our suffering in a very, very slight but significant and important way. Okay. Allowing, accepting. And we take a breath in, filling our chest and lungs. And then as we exhale slowly out of our mouth with sound, and let's do one more like that because that was so hard. breathing in, accepting, and then as we exhale, letting go, letting go. And in that letting go, we're allowing, we're really not pushing anything away. I'm allowing myself to be sad and angry and frustrated with why this tree had to be cut down. And I'm allowing it. And the next thing, the I, which stands for investigate, or as I prefer, the inquire, with interest and care. Once we've recognized and allowed what is happening, what we're feeling, what this difficult thing is about, we can bring more focus and attention to that by inquiring or investigating with ourselves, calling on your natural curiosity, the desire to know the truth, directing our focused attention to this experience. You might ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? What do I need? What am I experiencing in my body? What am I believing about this moment, about myself in this moment? What do I need to give to myself in this moment? What do I most need? And I'm going to give some space for you to think about that. And then I'll share with you what I most needed in that moment and still do in this moment. But thinking those questions again, how am I experiencing all of this recognition, this allowing of this difficult thing? How do I experience it in my body? Is there tension? Is there tightness? Can I be with this? Can I allow myself to soften a little bit? Can I let go? What am I believing about myself, about the world in this moment? What do I need now? Taking a moment to be with those questions as you inquire with yourself or you investigate with yourself what is most needed in this moment. Sometimes we need tears, we need anger, we need whatever it is. We need to tell someone, what is it that you need, that you're learning, that you need about this experience. And I'll share with you now that what I learned is I was feeling very sad because of this tree, but I was also very angry, thinking and believing that why don't people realize the beneficial, incredible benefits, the beneficial nature of trees, the grace, the goodness. They clean our air. They do so much to nourish our life on this earth, and we cut them down without a second thought sometimes. And I was believing that there hadn't been any thought behind it, that, oh, this tree probably makes a mess and people have to rake leaves. And I don't know, I was making up all kinds of things. And don't these people know that, okay, if you think and know that you're going to have to cut down a tree, can you do some legacy planning? Can you think, I'm going to need to cut this tree down in a couple of years. Let's plant a couple of other trees that can replace this tree. All of these things were going through my mind, and and I'm going to write a letter to the city. And I felt honestly like I wanted to go back and kind of rant and rave a bit to these poor innocent people that were cutting down this tree, just doing their job. That's the nature. That's just how hard it was for me in that moment. I didn't do any of those things, but part of me really wanted to. And I sat with that, and and yet I knew, okay, I don't know. Maybe there was something really wrong with this tree. Maybe I don't know what I don't know. And that kind of helped. And I thought, well, maybe I can find out more. Okay. So that's everything that I learned by investigating and inquiring with myself. and that's where it went. I'd like you to take a little bit more time in this moment with that, just sort of plugging that into your own situation. And I'll be quiet so that you can do that. Never entirely sure how much time to allow. If we were sitting in person, I would be able to tell by your body language and the sounds in the room that people were kind of coming to a place of, working with that to the extent that they can. But I don't have that ability to do that with you. So I'm going to move along, but encourage you. If I've cut this process off, you can always come back to it. And I will encourage you to do that if I'm cutting that off for you. And again, I apologize. Now we move on to the N in the RAIN meditation that stands for nourish with compassion. Nourishing with compassion, the things that are naturally arising in this difficult moment from even this practice, this meditation. I know myself as I was sharing with you and getting kind of agitated again, and how hard that was to be with it and to share it out loud with you. I hope I haven't scared anybody, but just to sort of now go, okay, Brenda, I know how important trees are to me. They really are. I love them. I value them. I cherish them. I really try to express my gratitude to them every day. Um, and so this is why this was so painful. Of course, seeing this hurt me to the core. Of course it hurt. Of course it does. And then I went from there to, and there's so much suffering happening right now. The folks in Turkey and Syria, the people in the Ukraine, and everyone else out there who is living with uncertainty and pain and death and disease. And yeah, this is really, really difficult, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Can we bring that compassion to ourselves? And can we, in so many ways, I know that it seems kind of a little hokey, but just maybe placing your hand on your heart or alongside of your face, just so you can feel that touch, your own human touch. This is really hard. And you're not crazy for feeling what you're feeling. And of course you feel this way. Of course. And those gentle words and that acknowledgement just allows us to soften ever so little. Yeah, it's only natural that you might be feeling the feelings that you're feeling with regard to the situation that you're sitting with. And I'd like to give you some time to do that. Of course, so really bringing those words of compassion to yourself right now. This is so hard. And sometimes I say sweet little things to myself, like, of course, sweetie, this was really hard to see and hear and feel and know. Of course, it's hard to see those images. And we'll make donations, we'll send relief, we'll whatever we need to do next. But in this moment, to acknowledge that it hurts us because we care and we love and we're part of this incredible human race. Can you do that? Can you bring those words of care and compassion to yourself? And along with that, I'd like to remind you of the non-identifying. I really, for quite a few moments yesterday, was really upset and agitated. But that's not who I am. That's a moment in my day that I felt those things. I had a job to do. I had many other things to involve myself with, and I wanted to do those things. I wasn't shoving it away, the pain and the suffering, but I recognize too that sometimes there's a time and a place, and this is not a judgment. This is just, I will come back. I will be compassionate. I will take good care. I will inquire with, you know, the city as to why this tree had to come down. I will take care. But in this moment, to recognize too that I'm more than the feelings that were happening to me in that moment. I have many, many thousands of feelings in a day. And those were ones that were difficult. And I am not just that. I am not those difficult, sad, angry thoughts and feelings. There's room in my life for much more and everything. So I'd like you to spend a little bit of time non-identifying with this thing that you've been working with in this practice. Whatever it is, knowing that you are many things, not just this. And that doesn't mean that we sweep it under the carpet or ignore it. It just means we hold it all. Can you hold it all in this moment? And that's what this meditation is meant to help you do, to hold it all, to be with yourself in this compassionate way, going through and living through something very difficult, whatever that might be. So I'm going to be quiet now as you work with that in a very gentle, validating way. And if you're finished working with that, but I'd like to give a little bit more time, maybe in this moment, just taking in some deeper breaths as you sit in this moment of stillness. We'll allow others to finish their work in this moment. And as we think about wrapping up this practice, it's really, really important to notice how this was not easy, and it maybe felt very awkward or uncomfortable in places. And um, can I say this? That I don't want to say that it gets easier, but we get more comfortable with this process, and it can actually bring so much relief to our systems when we practice this way, when we remember to recognize, allow, inquire, and nourish or non-identify. It really can help us in a difficult moment. But it's like anything. It takes some practice, and so I encourage you to not give up. Try it again, even later on today or tonight or tomorrow, or just touch into it a little bit. if you would like some guidance with this, you can find a rain meditation on YouTube, just or even just if you Google and just type in rain meditation, you'll probably get some things that have meditation to the sound of rain, and that might be pleasant. But if you actually put R and then period A, period I, period N, period, you'll get it'll trigger that as an acronym, and then you'll get a true rain meditation. And so you can try it again, and I just encourage you to do that. Because this really does help us to feel some very powerful things that we don't often get from others in our existence. So often, and through no fault of their own, and we're guilty of it too. Sometimes we say and do things that aren't very skillful or aren't necessarily what someone may need to hear or to see or to feel. And so this is one way of really, really nourishing yourself and bringing this very important validation to ourselves and our suffering. So just going to allow you to sit again for, let's just say, about 30 seconds, and then I'll chime the bowl, and we'll let that mark the end of this rain meditation. And then we'll bring some relaxation to ourselves and our systems, because that might be just what we need. About 10 seconds. I'm going to chime the bowl. If your eyes have been closed and you're sitting in a bright room, do protect your eyes before you open them and come back. You may wish to adjust your body, because that was probably quite a, at least a 20-25 minute sit. So if you need to stretch before we kind of go into the next part, just, hyperextend your toes, point them, raise your hands up. I've got my hands spread, and I'm taking in some nice breaths, and then adjusting your sitting posture just a little bit, however that feels good. Okay, so I will try not to get too distracted in this relaxing body scan meditation, because there's just so many parts that we could bring some focus to, and I'll try and be a little narrowing of that. So hopefully it still brings you some benefit. But that rain meditation may have been very triggering or disturbing for you. My hope is that it's given you some wisdom too, even if it's difficult. And in that wisdom, there may be some choice about how or what you need next to bring some comfort. And I'm proposing this relaxing body scan after working so hard and being with difficult things. So again, your eyes can be open or closed. And in this moment, just bringing your gentle awareness to the fact that you're breathing, following the breath for a few moments, letting your chest fill with nourishing air, your chest and your lungs, and then a lovely, slow and gentle exhale. As we bring awareness to the top of your head, noticing any sensations at your scalp. Maybe there's not much. Maybe there's a little tickle or something else that you can be aware of. Letting your awareness flow down to your face, to your eyes and your eyebrows, letting your eyebrows be smooth and your eyes soft, unhinging your jaw, open and close a bit in case there's been some clenching or tensing. Noticing any sensations on your lips, or inside your mouth, your teeth, your gums, even your ears. Allowing the sound of my voice to sort of reach your ears, deep inside your ears. And taking a breath in, and as you exhale, letting awareness flow down your throat and your neck, softening with your gentle, warming awareness. And into your shoulders and the muscles that connect your shoulders to your neck, throat, those trapezius muscles. And if it feels right, maybe shrugging your shoulders or rolling them back a little bit, pausing, and in that stillness, noticing any sensations in your shoulders from the inside out. As you bring awareness now to your upper arms, the large muscles, and your elbows, and your lower arms. Just sort of allowing the gentle pull of gravity to cradle your arms, pulling them down closer to the earth center. Breathing in deeply, exhaling slowly and gently as you bring awareness to your hands, inside your hands, palms of your hands and the backs of your hands, each of your fingers. Noticing any sensations that are there to be noticed in your hands and in your fingers. Maybe there's tingling, warmth, or coolness, or some other sensation that you're aware of. Breathing in and letting go. Scanning back now to notice if there's any part of you that we've just spent some time with that might be holding some tension or tightness, that it maybe came back. And if it has, gentle invitation to soften, to let go again. And it's not unusual in a body scan meditation to have to do that quite a few times as we sit with this gentle awareness of our bodies and what they might or might not be doing. So bringing awareness now to our chest and our upper back, our lungs and our shoulder blades and our collarbones and our breastbone or sternum, the ribs in front and back. Perhaps noticing the movement of them as we breathe. Or maybe there's some other sensation in your back or in your chest as you sit in this moment of awareness. Following the movement for a moment or two. We can let our awareness flow downward towards our abdomen, our bellies, and our lower back. Resting there for a moment. Perhaps noticing the movement of our bellies as we breathe in and out. In our lower back, perhaps noticing points of contact as we rest on the chair or the cushion, whatever we're in contact with at our back. In this moment, noticing any other sensations in your abdomen. This moment, There may be some digestion happening, sounds or gurgles, or just the movement of the breath, which can be very grounding, centering, because it's right in the center of our bodies. And taking in a deeper breath, filling your chest and lungs, and releasing that breath in your own time. As you bring awareness now to your sit bones, your buttocks and your pelvic area. Noticing again, perhaps the weight of your body as you sit, points of contact, warmth or pressure, whatever you can notice about your sit bones. Maybe there's a slight feeling of tension or being on guard in those muscles that are supporting you. And if you'd like to invite yourself to let go, soften, release tension or tightness, bringing awareness to your legs, your long, long legs, the long bones and the powerful muscles, the weight, the posture of your legs, noticing are your legs straight or bent. Whatever you can notice about your legs in this moment, perhaps from the inside out. Breathing in and out, and maybe even a little bit deeper, a little bit slower as you exhale. And if that serves, one more breath like that. And exhaling, letting go. Bringing your gentle awareness now to your ankles and your feet. From the inside out, all the bones and muscles. Any sensations that are there to be felt in your feet, in your toes, each of your toes, and the space between your toes. Perhaps a sensation of footwear or socks, or feet resting on the flats of the floor. Maybe pressure at your heels depending on how you are sitting, reclining. Whatever you can notice about your toes in this moment. I'm going to allow and invite you to sit for a minute or two as you continue to gently scan through, noticing any sensations that are there to be noticed from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Gently inquiring with yourself, noticing if there are places of tension or tightness. And if you're not sure, one thing you can do is to increase tension or tightness. So flexing or holding on purpose, increasing any tension in your body. And then with awareness, releasing and noticing the contrast of that feeling, how it felt to feel tense, how it feels to release that tension. Noticing that as you sit for a few more seconds now. Breathing, following the breath, and even recognizing that in this body scan meditation, your mind may indeed be wandering, may indeed be feeling a little bored or sleepy or anxious. That's awareness too. Being aware of whatever you're able to be aware of and notice about yourself in this moment. Being with yourself in a very non-judging, welcoming, accepting way with whatever feelings or sensations are there. And perhaps coming back to the breath if that serves you. Gentle instruction, invitation to yourself to soften, let go. Perhaps allowing the awareness of the weight of your body and how it is gently being held, gently being pulled toward the earth center. And perhaps taking in some deeper breaths now as we think about wrapping up this body scan meditation. Your own time, breathing in, slow and gentle exhale. One more breath like that, if you will. Good. Chime the bowl now. There's just enough time for loving kindness meditation. I do want to say that with the body scan meditation, we're always hoping for some relaxation, but sometimes it doesn't come. And that happens, and it's kind of normal. And you can be a bit curious about that and wonder, oh, what's that about? Oh, it's this pain that I have that draws my attention. That's so normal. We're always just hoping to bring gentleness and awareness to ourselves, whatever the condition, whatever we're in. So, just a thought, you really can't do this wrong. I sat with a patient today who just insisted that she could not sit still, and her mind, anyway, to make a long story short, 3 minutes we started with, and by the end of our time together she was sitting for longer and longer, and was quite surprised that, and she said to me, "Is that all there is to it?" Yeah, just come on back. When your mind wanders, come back. And anyway, so it was nice to sit with her, and it's always nice to sit with people who I'm teaching for the first time and see their reactions and take that in. So that was very rewarding today. At any rate, um, let's bring some loving kindness to this world and so many of the folks that are suffering, that we are aware of by the things that we're seeing in images on TV, even just driving down our own streets of Chatham. We see a lot of suffering, pain. We are aware of people who are in pain and suffering. And so we can't always be profoundly helpful to folks as we wish we could, but we can donate, we can send messages of kindness, we can, with our very presence, just let folks know that we care, that we're with them. But when we can't be, this, loving kindness meditation is a beautiful practice. And it goes like this. Those of you who've done this with me know I'll repeat it 3 times. You're going to repeat the short form. I don't expect you to say all the words that I say, but the short form version, which is what I try to start with. So we go like this. May all beings everywhere, myself included, be happy. May all beings everywhere, myself included, be happy. And this means may we live with a playful and joyful, patient, accepting, creative, non-judging heart, mind, body, and spirit. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be happy. And we breathe in. And as we exhale, the power of those loving, kind intentions travels. The next loving, kind intention that I'd like to offer goes like this. May all beings everywhere, myself included, be healthy. May all beings everywhere, myself included, be healthy. And this means to have a body mind that gives energy and strength and stability and wisdom and healing. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be healthy. Breathing in deeply, and as we exhale, letting those intentions leave our hearts and minds, travel around the world, around the globe. The next loving, kind intention that I'd like to offer goes like this. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be safe. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be safe and protected from all sorts of inner and outer harms and burdens, to be free from pain and suffering. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be safe. Breathing in deeply, filling our chest and lungs. And as we exhale, letting the power of that love and those kind words travel outside of our bodies to be received in the world. And the last loving, kind intention that I'll offer tonight goes like this. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be peaceful. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be peaceful and live with the ease and the grace and the goodness of contentment and stillness and courage and compassion and calm confidence, well-being. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be peaceful. And may we let that peace begin within ourselves. And as we breathe in deeply, filling our chest and lungs, and as we exhale, imagining that the power and the loving, kind intention of our words travels outside of our bodies and our homes that we're sitting in, to be received by all beings everywhere in this world who are in need, who are living in pain and fear and suffering. May we all be peaceful. May we all be free from pain and suffering. And I'm going to chime the bowl, and we'll let that mark the end of our practice tonight. Taking a few moments now to breathe and feel the strength of our words and our compassion and our care. Chiming the bowl now.